Hello, everyone. My name is Deanna Harris. Welcome to the Black Women in Media's fifth conference and awards. We are excited to introduce to you our panelists, Deshonda Brown, Chanel Janai, Io Thomas, Tandra Renee Speedham. Welcome, ladies. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
awesome. Just going to do a quick introduction of each of them before we get started. Deshonda Brown is a freelance culture journalist, public speaker, and mental health advocate based in Brooklyn, New York, with a passion for mental health, social justice, and uplifting the Black community through her writing. Her bylines can be found in Couture, Hello Beautiful, Revolt, Exo Nicole, Sabonet, High Fae, and more covering Black culture, social justice, entertainment, and mental health. Chanel Janai is a freelance feature writer currently living and working in Orlando, Florida. Developing a love and knack for personal profiles, Chanel has made her mark as a creative speaking to some of the most influential people across the entertainment industry. Currently, she serves as an entertainment writer for The Root and celebrity features writer for Exo Nicole, a digital lifestyle brand dedicated to empowering and inspiring women of color through both editorial and social content. Io Thomas is the chief visionary editor behind the woman-owned Excellence magazine. She uses her creative gifts in content creation and media to produce the digital go-to guide for women seeking to soar in their personal and professional lives. In a short amount of time, WOE has become a trusted publication for its everyday readers and influencers who grace the cover. Such dedication has allowed Io to be featured in Huffington Post, Fox 45, Baltimore, State Washington, Bravo, TV Online, Shade Room, Afro Newspaper, Fashion Bomb Daily, Google DC, and other major media outlets. And last but not least, Tandra Renee Speedham is a staff entertainment writer at The Roof with a primary focus on film, TV, and culture. She is a screenwriter, director, and producer with an upcoming comedy digital series, Wing Chick. Thank you, ladies, so much for joining us today. I'm so excited to dive deep into this panel. So let's get right into it. Is blogging dead? What are your thoughts on it? How does one get started in blogging?
I guess I'll start. I feel like to first answer that question, we have to define blogging because I feel like the lines between blogging and journalism are blurred. I feel like everybody who's a journalist is not a blogger, and everybody who's a blogger is not a journalist. What we have to do is we have to create that clear but that thin line in the sand as to what is blogging and what's journalism. I don't think that it's dead. I just personally believe that there's a lot of misinformation as to what blogging is and what it has evolved into, as opposed to whether or not it's still alive. I think it's very much still alive. There's different types of avenues for it. There's social justice blogging, there's mommy blogging, there's entertainment blogging, there's film blogging. There's so many different avenues of blogging, but a lot of people oftentimes confuse that with journalism or being an essayist or being an op-ed writer or being an opinion piece writer. So it's very much still a lane for that, but I feel like there needs to be that definition and that clear indication of being a blogger versus being a journalist. Yes, you can be both, but you have to define what they are.
Mm-hmm. Very well put. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with Deshonda, especially because I work at a publication, The Root, which is its history has been crafted in journalism, right? But we've gotten a name for ourselves because we do kind of editorialize our journalism. We do back it up with facts. So actually what's funny about that is that we call our writing blogging. We call them blogs because it's very, editorialized. As I said, it's personalized, and the writers get this notoriety because they have this personality, right? So it's not just straight, Washington Post heavy reporting, but we also still back it up with facts. And there are, especially our editors, there are people who went to J school. Journalism is a craft. I actually do not call myself a journalist because of that. I am a writer first and foremost. I'll also call myself a blogger first and foremost because that's how I got my start in digital writing as well.
Very nice. Anybody chime in?
I would just piggyback off of exactly what Ton just said. We are now colleagues. I'm happy to say that. So I definitely do agree with the fact that blogging and journalism kind of meshes itself together somewhat, especially in the root, which I think is actually pretty commendable. And it's actually a different form of, writing that people aren't necessarily used to. So, but to answer your first question, no, blogging is not dead. I happen to be friends with a very, very popular blogger. She's now a mommy blogger, but she started off just doing fashion, and to see her growth from 2010 to 2020 and to see the things that she's in. So I definitely would not consider blogging dead at all. You just have to find your lane, get in it, and put your foot on the gas.
Yeah, I agree with the blogging not being dead. I've seen bloggers, as times have changed, figured out ways to make themselves distinctive, because it's so many, the internet is full of blogs, and still remaining relevant, and just figuring out creative ways to still be able to stand out with why everything is changing with media content creation. So I agree too.
Very nicely said, ladies. And now you mentioned creating your own lane. How have you guys each created your own lane within this industry? And thank you for clarifying the difference between a journalism, a writer, and a blogger. So how have you created your own lane within this industry?
I think I can start and speak from my perspective. I'm pretty new. Our magazine started in 2016, and when we started as a print publication. We were biannually, so we only print 2 times a year, but we were kind of filling ourselves out. And I noticed that people were really growing and gravitating to online very quickly. And I decided to make the change to speak to my audience and be able to reach people much quicker, to go into full digital. And what I was doing, no one really was doing it. Only, what is the magazine, Rolling Out? They were the only magazine that were doing those digital covers. And so I started seeing that. I'm like, wait a minute. And I'm like, okay, let me try this. And so we started creating a name for ourselves in the digital space. I stopped the print, and then I went to digital, and I realized, I'm like, wow, even though people really liked having the publication in their hands, we noticed that we were getting more traction with the digital because of Instagram, social media, people reposting and things like that. And so that's how we started to stand out and started to distinguish ourselves as a digital magazine with the covers. It took a while for people to gravitate to it because, people kept saying, how can I download, or how can I purchase your magazine? Can I go in the store? But I feel like with us shifting to that digital presence and also adding other creative outlets and other avenues and streams for us to be able to, present our magazine and such, and also the level of the quality of our covers were also getting a lot of attention. I think that's how we started creating our own way of being distinctive, and setting ourselves apart as a digital publication. Because digital also means 2 things. Let me clarify. Because there's also a digital publication where it's the replica of the print that you can download on like an issue app and things like that. But then also digital can also be defined as what we're doing, as it's all the content is online. So that's how we're able to distinguish ourselves.
Great. Thank you for clarifying that. Would anybody else like to add in?
Yeah, I also consider myself a newbie. I just literally started getting into the features writing game and the entertainment game about 3 years ago. So I definitely consider myself a new kid on the block. But the thing that I feel differentiated me so quickly was the fact that I went towards an area that not a lot of newbies would probably go to, which is celebrity features and trying to talk to celebrities right out the gate. So that was the one thing. And with me, I was literally a college student trying to finish up my last couple of years in college when I decided to do this. So with me not really having a lot of base knowledge, but taking the courses at the exact same time as me going forward with this career path, I was putting that knowledge into practice right away. So that was the thing for me. I just kept applying the knowledge, kept growing, and continued to do the scary thing, I guess, within this industry. So that's what I feel has been working for me, and hopefully it'll continue to work.
Yes, continuing to make your own lane.
Absolutely. Oh, I'm sorry, Chanel. I will say that similar to Chanel, she and I have very, very similar paths. I'm a newbie as well. Like if 3 years is a newbie, then I am a complete newbie because I officially have my bylines published in major publications, both digital and tangible copies in February. Like similar to when quarantine started to begin, that's when my career started to rise. But I started in radio. In college, I had my own radio show for about 2 years at Clark Atlanta University. And similar to Chanel, I did what a lot of people were afraid to go for. I did a lot of celebrity interviews. I interviewed people from BET to OWN Network to TV One, and being only 19, 20 in the game and being on the UNCF Stars, an Evening of Stars red carpet, it was intimidating for me, but I knew it was something that I wanted to do. And from there, I transitioned to PR because I wasn't as comfortable being on the forefront of everything and having my face out there. I really wanted to help mold the story. So after college, I realized that I can still get people's story out there, still have my voice out there, but not completely put myself on the back burner, which is how I then in turn discovered blogging. So I came out with my own blog at Sign Shonda. I launched my blog with like a 2-3 page open letter to my college rapist, and from there that went, like, I say fake viral because like it hit the web, but it didn't go like, on the Shade Room or anything like that. But it went crazy, and I realized that from there was a power in my voice that I hadn't seen in any other writer that I had ever encountered, and that's how I decided to develop my own lane, because I feel like every writer has a superpower to have a unique voice and bring something different to the table that nobody else can. And mine is humanization. I'm able to take somebody that I'm talking to or myself and put it into a story that everybody can relate to. So relatability and humanization is my superpower. So I took that from my blog, and then similar to Chanel, I took it to larger profile pieces, from Chloe and Halle to Soledad O'Brien to Angela Ryan. I was able to take my ability to tell my own story and take whatever other people were going through. Because at the end of the day, the difference between Beyonce and us is that she just has more coin and she's more famous. Like, she's a person at the end of the day. So I want to tell a person's story as though they are a person, not as though they're a celebrity, not as though they're a singer, not as though they're a public speaker, as though they're a person. So that's how I found my own lane. I took what I was able to do with my own story, and I was able to translate it into everybody else's. And that's how I was able to get to where I am today. And that's how I am the growing, yet growing quickly writer that is on the screen.
Love to see it. That is amazing. And everybody wants to be able to relate to a story. So that's great to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. And my background is actually interesting because I'm considered a newbie professionally, because I didn't start writing and getting paid for it until probably about 2017. But I do have a background with the OG bloggers, like from 10 plus years ago. So actually, I have a relationship with Very Smart Brothers. Probably a lot of people know them. And it's funny because now I work with them professionally because The Root acquired them in 2017. And I was immersed in that community, right? We really had like we call it like a happy hour lounge, where we was like in the comments all day, even at work, like in the comments, communicating with each other and discussing their topics, the stuff they said, that was controversial or, very interesting to talk about. And so we fostered a community in there, and I started to learn and know and get to know these people that were in these communities, blogging communities, and they have risen to heights that is amazing. Like they really were just, as DeShonda said, they really were just talking about themselves. They were humanizing their content, and people really gravitated towards that, because things that are niche, that are seen niche, that you're talking about something that's specific to your life, they're actually very universal. So a lot of people related to these things, and they got to know them, right? And so they're out of the stratosphere right now. They wrote a book, all those things, and now they're required by the Root, and they get to write every day and still be themselves, and get to monetize that. That's really dope. So I started getting into blogging professionally again. I started freelancing. I started working at Blavity. And then because I love entertainment culture, I love talking about this stuff for free. I love analyzing films. I love talking about films and all those things. But then when Blavity acquired Shadow and Act, I was like, that's my opportunity to get in. So I started working with them, and I started contributing to Shadow and Act. And what's amazing about that is that Shadow and Act got me at Oprah's house. Like, I got to interview Oprah. I got to interview the interviewer, and I was still pretty new, right? So I'm like, oh my God. So just fostering those relationships, I think, is very important too. And very genuine, right? Relationships. Like, we became friends first. It wasn't about what we can get out of each other. It was, hey, we relate to these things, and we relate to each other in these ways. And we love writing, right? We just have a very, very big love for creating.
Mm-hmm. First of all, I want to say I hope everybody's taking notes on this, because these ladies are dropping some amazing gems to get into the blogging business. And what I'm getting from each one of your stories is being proactive, staying consistent, and just being prepared for the right moment and time. The next question I want to get into is COVID-19 and quarantine, and have you ladies been able to adapt to this new world that we're living in?
I feel like we don't have a choice.
Do
not. We don't have a choice. I think that, we've seen a lot of people, a lot of writers specifically, get hit really hard. We've seen it with Billboard. We've seen it with Vibe. A lot of writers have unfortunately gotten let go. A lot of writers have decided to pivot their career from writing to something else, whether it's PR, social, marketing, ad sales. There's been a huge hit in the industry, and I feel like what's happened, especially with Black writers of all kinds, Black PR people, Black marketers, our mental health is really at stake. And I feel like that's the one thing that we really need to shed a light on. A lot of our creativity is stifled because we're forced to, well, not forced to, but for lack of better terms, we're forced to report on these things that are affecting our everyday lives, not just as people, but as Black people. There's been a lot of times where I've had to write something for Revolt, and I've had to just shut my computer off and say, I just can't do this. Because at the end of the day, I might not be related to George Floyd, but that's still my brother. I might not be related to Breonna Taylor, but that's still my sister. And it hits the same. With COVID-19, it for me personally allowed me to put my mental health first and take a step back and take a step in the mirror and look at what I can and cannot handle. Because I'm still used to always being on the go, whether it's, like Tanja said, going to somebody's house for an interview or setting up a Zoom call. I'm so used to doing all these things that COVID-19 put everything on hold for me and forced me to be in my own thoughts and forced me to think about how I'm going to adjust to this newfound stillness. Because Deshonda pre-2020 didn't know what stillness was. I was everywhere. So what it did is, for me personally, it allowed me to think about what my mental health plate can handle, how much can I carry, what I need to take off is a priority, what do I need to bring to the table, what do I need to take off of the table. So I feel like with a lot of Black writers specifically, it is a hard time, especially considering the election season, especially considering that votes are being recounted, considering the fact that after June 20th, 2021, everything's going to be completely different for the next 4 years. So it really was a challenging time for all of us. I think I can't speak for anybody, but I think I can confidently speak on that it was challenging to say the least. But a lot of us have been coming on top, and I couldn't be any prouder to be a Black writer than I am right now in this time.
Mm-hmm. Amen to that.
I can say for me, I had a lot of surprises because my son, I got pregnant at the beginning of the year. He wasn't playing. He's here now. And that, even with my publication, unfortunately, we took a hit as well, advertising, sponsorships, because so many other companies have been, cutting budgets financially for us. We suffered some things, but I can say that a lot of the people, my writers on my team, they still were willing to continue to push through. because at the end of the day, I know that, what we have is great. And this is just a season that we're going through. It's not something that's going to remain. So what I had to do as a visionary, I had to take some time, that downtime, that stillness, as Shauna just mentioned, to really think about ways that I can creatively move forward. So we're going to look a little different. We are changing our business model moving forward, and how we're going to structure the publication. But for me, also, I had to take a deeper look at legacy and what I wanted to leave for my children, because I also have a 3-year-old. And so this really helped me with a lot of self-reflection. And during that time, I actually pivoted. I still have my publication, but I also birthed a creative agency as well, because I have a background in corporate human resources. And so we now provide jobs for creatives, digital content, creative directors, UXI designers, people that are in that social media marketing space. So it's actually been a blessing for me. COVID has really opened so many other doors for me to birth new opportunities and new ventures. And so I don't say 2020 is dead, and I don't speak those negative words over 2020 for me. I spoke life the entire year, and God has really opened major doors for us to still be able to move forward and create, and still for me to bring all my skill sets into one place. So
that is so beautiful, and I'm so happy to hear that things are going well for you during this time.
I know for me personally, I was just telling my mother that 2020 literally fell into what Charles Dickens would say, the best of times and the worst of times at the exact same time. And I just feel like that's the most accurate description I could give 2020 at this point. But for me personally, as far as the pivot goes, this year did two things for me. Number one, it made me really question what exactly was the point of what I was doing. Mm-hmm. I think about when the pandemic, a little bit after the pandemic started, and especially after all the social unrest started to creep up after George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, I found myself not really getting the point of what I was writing about anymore, because I was like, who wants to read about, TV shows and movies? There's a protest happening outside. Like, who cares anymore? And so that was definitely a struggle for me about the middle part of the year. And it wasn't until I realized that us telling those stories were equally as important, and they served as a reprieve and a release against all the other turmoil that was happening. That was what kind of reinvigorated the passion for me to keep going and to keep writing for that in that industry. The second thing that it did was get me very, very clear on, like Ayo said, my legacy, and thinking about what I'm doing now in 10 years, in 5 years, in 3 years. And so it really made me clear on a couple of the goals that I set for myself. I know one of the things I wanted to get into was screenwriting. I found that out a couple of years ago, that I really love, as much as I love talking about TV and movies, I would also love the opportunity to write and create more stories. So, they always say life is short, but 2020 definitely played into that a lot. So it made me really hunker down and get those things to me and bring those things to me that I felt like would align with who I want to be in 3 years and 5 years and 10 years. So that it made me hunker down and also get a lot clearer. So
yeah, finding your clarity, definitely.
Yeah, those are like all great points. Like DeShonda touched on a very important aspect of the media industry, all these layoffs, right? And we had to look at all these layoffs. First of all the companies, the big company, the parent companies that own these publications, they merge together, and then when they merge and consolidate, they lay off a bunch of people. So having to watch my colleagues and my peers lose their jobs was devastating. And then also having to write about that kind of content, right? With the uprisings, the police brutality, the presidential election, all these things are very stressful and frustrating to write about. And we as Black people don't get to process those things. We have to write about it. We have to be quick because traffic and numbers and money is the priority for these companies. So we're not able to process it as we're writing. And even in my beat, which is much lighter, because I give all the praise to the people who have to write about these things every single day, the news writers, the political writers who do not get a break from this. But in my beat, I get a break from it. And as Chanel said, I feel proud that I get to give people a reprieve, and they get to breathe. They get to exhale and read something funny, read something silly, read some mindless entertainment. And I always try to put humor in my stories. So that's my thing. I'm a comedy writer. That's the way I want to create content when I do create film and TV as well. Like, so I try to put that in there because that Black joy obviously is also revolutionary. That is also important to us, and we should lean into it, and we have been. But in addition to the devastating losses and everything, I've been so proud to see the content creators. To the key word here is that we've all been using is pivot, right? They've been able to pivot to other things. Like for example, Danielle Young, like she unfortunately got laid off at Essence, but she was able to create her own show and has been thriving. Like, I am so proud of her. I mean, like, Facebook acquired her show. Like, it's insane. Like, it's amazing. And, you know, people have been able to take that loss into a gain. They've been blossoming. They've been turning into butterflies. And it's very, very cool to see.
Absolutely. We've seen that with Danielle Cadet from Unbothered. Now she's at Strong Black Lead, and she's about to kill it. We see it with Ebony Williams, who's at Revolt Black News. That was supposed to be like a 2-week thing, and then they extended it, and now it's a whole news program on Revolt. I feel like the power of the pivot in 2020 is absolutely real, and similar to what Io was saying about the whole digital content. Now a lot of people are realizing the power of the internet, because now people have a lot more screen time. A lot of people have a lot more time to dedicate to their Instagram and traffic and whatnot. So now all those digital covers are about to go from like what was here to like all the way up here. So the pivot is real right now.
Absolutely.
Definitely. And the resilience of the Black community during this time is so powerful. And I admire everyone within our community and you ladies for just being able to find that clarity and that stillness and that peace of mind so that you continue to push forward and change the narrative of other people to show that we're good. Like, we're gonna be good. We're gonna be okay regardless of anything. So thank you for that insight. But what I want to touch upon now is the mental healthness aspect of being in this industry as a writer, blogger, journalist. How do you be able to create that stillness and clarity being in this fast-paced industry? How do you do that?
Is this question more so personally, like?
In a sense, yes. Yeah.
Well,
however, whatever you want to.
How did I create this stillness with? I make sure I carve out everyday space for prayer and meditation for myself, and then I also make sure I lead with a positive mind with those that are on my team. You know, not saying that I don't show, you know, my downside or I'm not authentic, because I'm an open book. Anybody that know me personally, they know I'm the most authentic person anyone can meet. But I felt like for me, I have to make sure that I create a space for people to find hope. And so in the midst of darkness, in the midst of all of the things that you ladies have mentioned with the, you know, the racial issues that we're facing, I always try to be that voice of positivity, that voice of light, that voice to say, you know, each one of you were created with DNA in you of creativity, and God has given you the power to create wealth, and God has given you the light on the inside of you. And so keep shining that light. So I've always been that voice for others. But in order for me to maintain that, I have to continue to, in my personal time, stay in that place of stillness, that prayer, that meditation. I do that to receive my investment so that I can invest in others. And that's how I keep going.
Amazing.
Yeah, I'm down with IO. Like the meditation is very, very key. I do that every morning. I start my morning. And what's funny about, this time, right? And in this modern time is that we're so programmed to like just go to our phones immediately, right? I made a dedicated choice to make sure I don't look at anything else. When I open my eyes, I make sure I put that timer on for my meditation and do it. Like not look at any of the apps, any of those things. So that's been very, very pivotal for me because even with this job, always on the go, right? Just like Deshonda, I was always traveling. I was always on the plane, living off, suitcases, all these things, and going to all these events, covering all these award shows, all these things. The only thing hasn't really changed for me is that I've worked from home, period. Like even before COVID, because the root headquarters is in New York City. I'm in LA, so I've always worked from home. But I am used to going to actual events in person, so that has changed as well. And doing all those things, I've become sort of a workhorse pretty much. I have to like work. I always got to be on the go. But the pandemic has definitely taught me the hard way to be still and to take off time and to take breaks, take vacations. All those things are very important to our mental health because those things are going to go without us anyway, right? Obviously, people are replaceable or they congest roles as the layoffs have shown us. And even this year has shown us that teleworking is very important and significant, right? Or that it's very worthy because a lot of companies will say, "Oh, you can't telework. You can't telework." Clearly, you can. Like we are an internet-based, digital-based society, and everyone is pivoted, right? Or they fold, right? They don't have a choice. So that is shown that as well. So just being able to center myself and being able to be one with myself instead of attaching myself to the work all the time was very, very important to me and a very hard lesson that I learned this year.
Yeah.
I can say,
go ahead.
You should know.
Oh no, go ahead.
I was gonna say very, very similar to Tanda and Io. Meditation for me is everything. I also like to do yoga in the morning. I love to run. I like to get my body active and my mind, body, spirit all correct. I like to pray in the morning before I do anything. And I've also learned the power of the word no. No is my best friend. It can be no, it can be nah, it can be absolutely not, it can be you tried it, it can just be a bunch of different ways, but at the end of the day, because I am so used to having a billion things and saying, yes, I'll do this, yes, I'll do that, especially because, like Chanel said, I'm new. So I want to pick up everything. I want to be able to be on the go. I want to be able to get more bylines. Deshonda, it's okay. Say no. Deshonda, it's okay to be like, I don't want to do this. It's okay to say, I can't do this. It's okay to say, this topic is a little too sensitive for me. I personally can't handle it. Or, you know what, I would really love to do this assignment, but because of my bandwidth, emotionally, spiritually, and mentally, I know a writer who can probably do it better because they can give all their time and attention to it. So being able to acknowledge what I can and cannot handle and saying no has become my best friend now. It doesn't pain me to let go of certain profiles or certain interviews. Absolutely. But if I know that I can't put 100% into whatever assignment this is about to be, I don't want to do it. Because the last thing I want to do is tarnish my personal brand and tarnish the brand of the publication that I'm writing for because I wanted to half-ass something. So saying no has definitely become like my new superpower during this COVID.
Great point.
I know for me, the running joke with my circle of close friends is that I like to call myself a strong nap advocate. I will rest and I will take the time to rest at any given point because for us as Black people and especially as Black women, I don't think we really understand the power of rest and the importance of rest and how being rested and fully, at peace internally sets the tone for everything else we put our hands to. So I will take a nap in a minute. I will cut things off. I'll be like, no, I got to go lay down. Because I just, I got to get myself together that way. But the other thing specifically with this pandemic, and it's so funny how it pulls different things out of you. Because we are all creatives, we get paid for that creativity. We have to turn that on. draw the water up out of that well in order to get a paycheck, in order to, fulfill our style of living. But the one thing that I have found joy in is using my creativity in other ways that don't involve my dependency on them to, keep my livelihood together. So I know you guys probably see the painting behind me. That's something that I did for myself that didn't require somebody, invoicing me. I didn't have to, send an invoice for it. I didn't have to promote it on social media. I didn't have to, spread the word about it. That was something that still utilized my creativity, but it wasn't for profit. And that's been the biggest thing for me as far as like finding some sort of mental saneness and mental peace, is finding other ways to use my creativity that just I'm not dependent on for my livelihood. So whether that's, that's a painting back there. I've also been coloring, drawing. I have a piano in here as well, a keyboard rather in here as well. So I've just been utilizing those things. So for me, it's just learning how to and finding other ways to express my creativity to where I can be free to just revel in that and not be like, okay, well, got to turn that in. I got to send this off to somebody. I got to do that. That I learned that this year that drove me crazy a little bit. So I had to find a different way of doing it.
I love that point that you bring up, because being a creative it's hard to be able to navigate and be able to center your thoughts and get them on paper and get the deadlines in and be able to get that flowing. I want to ask you ladies, how do you make time to get into your creative mode? Because I know sometimes you can get into a little funk, or you can just kind of steer off the tracks. How do you just completely channel that energy to be able to create your vision?
Whew, that's a toughie because as my job is, right, it's very dependent on me being able to write fast, because I am a news writer. I do write features as well, but that's my primary responsibility, is to write news. So we have to be pretty fast. So turning that brain on is like, just like, I guess it's like a muscle memory for me. But as Chanel made a good point, as this year has taught us, is that even though I love doing this stuff, I love talking about film, I love talking about TV, it became a burden for sure, especially as we had to like churn out so much content at once. I didn't even want to watch anything like, because even though that's something that's considered an escape, I didn't want to watch any TV. I didn't want to watch any film because I associate it with work, right? And that's something that I had to do, or something that I had to churn out. So when I feel like that I'm in those funks, I just take some time off. I really do. I have to do it. And I know that there's this, since we are a society that's work, 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 especially in America. Even taking time off can be hard, because you're thinking about, oh, I'm going to be way backlogged when I get back, all these emails that I have to catch up to. But I had to let that go, because if something needs to be done, it's going to be done without me, right? Because the company still has to go on. But yeah, so when I don't have that time, I definitely take off and just get away from it all, and obviously stay active and all those things, because in LA the gyms are closed. That was a huge reprieve for me, and so I was like, now I have to be creative and do my own thing. But I used to just love being in the gym, and so when I take off, I just go off and be active outside somewhere, because thank goodness LA, the weather is always good, so I can always be outside. Go outside and be one with nature in some way, and get out of the the screen, right? Because the screen, it just hurts your eyes. It does everything. It makes you very stressed. So just resetting, right? Just resetting my mind is always good for my creative space, for sure.
I think environment for me is important. Like I said, I just had a newborn baby, and I have a 3-year-old. So it's kind of hard sometimes. So I have to plan my creative moments, because I'm always in mommy mode. And so sometimes I think my greatest moments is either when I take a nice walk. Nowadays, you appreciate walking, right? Because you can't go to the gym. Like she was, Tanja was just expressing about just the natural fresh air. But I've been just taking drives along the freeway. So when we were in quarantine, creators, we can't keep still. It's kind of hard physically, moving. Your mind is always moving, right? So I started this ritual where I would just started driving. I just recently moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, so I relocated from the Washington, D.C., Maryland area. And so Charlotte was new to me, and then the pandemic hit. So there were a lot of places that I wasn't able to, explore. And so I just would get in my car and start driving to different places, and during that time by myself, told my husband, you stay here, I need to go. And having that mommy time in the car for me has been absolutely refreshing because it's me, myself, and I could just think, and I can run down, I can put on the music and, just have my moment. And that has really helped feed a lot of my creativity when I got into, get into a funk. But overall, for me, putting myself into an environment for me to be and think creative is how I normally come out of that kind of like writer's block or creativity block. That's pretty much my approach.
For me, because now recently I've gotten into more of the entertainment news, like Tanja. And I don't know if I mentioned this, but we're actually colleagues now. So that's a really, really, really fun thing. And I'm learning, I've been, a fan of Tanja's for a while, reading her work for a long time. So to even be, sitting next to her in a sense virtually is amazing. But since I've started doing more of the entertainment news thing, like she said, you have to write fast. And as a person who came from a features writer background where you have a lot of leeway to kind of play around, with how you want to, editorialize the story, that was something really, really new for me. And it still is new. So I think whenever I get into a funk, I used to feel bad because I wasn't like other writers who had like, they light a candle, they sit down, they get their music on, they, sit by the window and just like gaze out. Like I used to feel bad because I'm not that type of writer. So for me, the one thing that I found was important is prayer. I cannot do anything on my own or by my own strength. So that is my anchor. Before I sit down to write anything, I will pray and ask God to literally flow through my hands and put words on the paper that I know I probably couldn't. So that is the number one thing for me. And if I find myself just going into the document and going without that, I will literally catch myself and stop and be like, okay, I know I'm good, but that's a different level. And the other thing that I find myself doing is reading other people's work. Like I said, I admire Tanja. I've been reading her stuff for a while. There are other writers out here and other people that are in the space that I want to eventually go into. So I read their work. I read not even just entertainment work. There's a very, very, very amazing writer, Taylor Crumpton, who is in the political space, cultural space. I read her work because she's just so good and she's able to analyze things and, critically analyze things very well. So I read people that I admire and that helps my juices get to flowing. It could be one word, one sentence, and I'm like, oh, that was the break or that was the light bulb that I needed in order for me to get started on this other thing. So prayer and reading other people's work has been definitely working for me.
I will say, for one, I do everything that these ladies do for sure. I feel like y'all really hit the key points. But in addition, what I do is nothing. I've realized that during quarantine, I've realized that I can't force my creativity. Like I thought it was muscle memory before. I thought I could just turn it on. But me being in a space now where I have so much room to do whatever I want to do, I realized I can't be like, okay, Deshonda, think. And then a light bulb comes. That's just not how it works. I just have to do nothing. And do nothing for me can mean, binge watching Girlfriends. It can mean going to my boyfriend's house and cooking dinner. It can mean going for a walk outside. Something that's not anywhere attached to the work that I need to curate, because I feel like if I'm forcing myself to do something, it's going to come out forced. I don't want to produce some work and then look back on it and be like, yo, Deshonda, this was way too obvious, or you could have done this angle. I feel like my best work is when it's organic, because I pull inspiration from wherever. knowing me, after this panel, I'm probably going to crank out a piece about woman empowerment. That's just how I am. If I do something that's not related to anything that I'm doing, the inspiration will naturally come. I can get inspiration from my boyfriend, from my mother, from my friend's dog, from a food that I ate 2 years ago. It, like, my mind just works like that. I can just get something if I'm not thinking too much about it, because I don't want to have to feel like I'm producing something and then looking back at it, it could have been way more seamless. It could have been way more flowing. It just could have seemed more effortless, as opposed to me trying to force a square into a circle hole. I don't ever want to be that writer, because then I feel like it's not organically me. It's not my voice. It's the forced Deshonda. It's the, I have to put something out to get paid Deshonda. And that Deshonda does not produce the best work. That's the Deshonda that's going to get the invoice, but that's not the Deshonda that I know that I am. So I'd much rather just take my time, give myself some leeway, and allow my creativity to just, be thrusted upon me by God, because whatever he has for me, I know it's going to be brilliant. So I'd much rather just have a nice little conversation with him and be like, you know what, I know you're about to do something great, so I'm going to just let you do what you do. And when you want to bestow it upon me, that'll be great. And then I can take forward from there.
Great, ladies. This has been a beautiful conversation. Thank you for dropping all these amazing gems. And I really hope you guys took notes on this, because I know I did in my head a bit. And I just want to end with one quote that each of you live by.
Mine is, no one can make you inferior without your consent. That's one of mine.
I love that. Mine would be right. Mine would be, actually, I'm stealing from Dr. Seuss, is no one is youer than you. Because we talk about how over congested blogging could be, and even like podcasts, right? Everybody's jumping into that, but nobody could be you. So nobody's youer than you.
Mine is, everything is figure outable. And that's not even a word, but that is literally how I govern my life. Everything is figure outable. That's it.
And mine is, I say it all the time to my friends as a joke, but it's something I literally live by. I did what I could, and what I couldn't, I tried, because I feel like you can try your best and you can give your all, but not everybody's going to, like what you do. Not everybody's going to see things the way that you do. But at the end of the day, if you gave your best and you gave your all, and you know that you brought everything that you could to the table, don't be so hard on yourself. And if you feel like you could have done better, just apply that to the next session. But don't be so hard on yourself in that moment, because like Chanel said, everything's figure outable. Everything can be fixed. So I did what I could, and what I couldn't, I tried.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for just being completely open, vulnerable, and transparent about your journey. I wish you guys all the best. I hope you stay safe. I hope you stay well and continue to be great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes.